West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like, it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street?
Depends. I mean, a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging, yeah.
Right, exactly. And then, obviously, we're looking for training for anything else that we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is, we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning, kiddos. It's me. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. It's Friday, July 24th, and I'm sitting in for Bill, and I'm feeling good today. We got a lot to get to on the program. We're in the dog days of summer. You better believe that. If you're on the East Coast like I am right here in our Capitol Hill studios, just blocks from the very place where they make laws the rule of this nation. Of course, you can watch us live on Free Speech TV and Talker TV. If you're watching that, you're seeing my new ball cap that I got on the West Coast. We'll talk more about that later. Free Speech is seen on DirecTV and Dish, and of course at youtube.com/Talker TV. We're tweeting at BP Show all the time. Love the Twitter box, and you can give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. To my right is Peter Ogburn. Hello,
Sir,
Peter. How are
happy
you?
Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. What's
Good to
new?
see you. Here we are.
Again on our own.
Direct.
Going down the only road we've ever known. Across the glass is, of course, Lisa Murphy, who's running the board.
Hey, good morning.
Lisa. If you give us a phone call at the number that I just stated, Mr. James Benson will answer your phone calls and put you through if we like you. And Monty Kanzler is operating the video board today. So thank you, Monty. All right, let's get to it. First of all, we need to talk about something very, very important,
all right,
which is that yesterday something crossed my desk, which was the new preview for Season 2 of Empire.
Oh, whoa.
Yes, very exciting stuff.
Oh, wow.
So in case you've forgotten, Empire, which got 2 Emmy nominations, I want to say that Taraji Henson, who plays Cookie, of course, the great matron of Empire Records, or of Lion Record, whatever it's called. I can't even remember the name now because I was so into it, but I've forgotten everybody, which I'm actually kind of happy about. But anyway, it's a new clip that's out. It's 30 seconds, and Lucius is in jail, and I guess they're all performing as a family. And of course, in the long, proud tradition of free insert black man's name here t-shirts, they are wearing free Lucius t-shirts. I must own one of these. It is a must own for me for the new season of Empire to get me a free Lucius t-shirt. So that's going to be a great season. I'm really excited about that. We've got all sorts of stuff to get to on today's show. We've got Trump. We've got Black Lives Matter. We've got all sorts of stuff. We've got America's favorite game show. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Chuck Taylor's, the iconic shoe from Converse, is undergoing its first real change in 98 years.
Yikes.
Converse is going to be updating the Chuck Taylor shoes. The biggest update is the inclusion of a material called Lunar Lawn. It is a lightweight, bouncy foam that Nike actually developed and uses inside of its running and basketball shoes. It's going to make it a more comfortable wear on the inside of the shoe. No real changes are going to be seen. Like if you look at a pair of Chucks, you're not going to see anything too major. They're still going to look like the same old shoe, but they are supposed to be a little more comfortable, especially for people who wear them without socks.
Which means they're likely to be a lot more expensive, right?
They're going to go up in price. They haven't said and specified exactly what
is the current going rate for Chucks? I mean, I remember when I was in a Chuck buying phase, the big draw for them, and this was when I was in like middle school and high school, was that they were like $30.
Yeah.
They were not, you know what I mean? They were not an expensive put out, but is this going to move them up
They're
into
going to
a
be more expensive.
higher echelon?
They've already said they're going to be more expensive, but we don't know what the official price is.
Because I'm not paying $70 for Chucks.
No way.
That's just not happening.
No, the draw of Chucks.
Right. They're cheap.
Is that right? Yeah. Like 30, 40
I'll take
bucks.
some uncomfortable shoes if they're cheap. I mean,
Of course.
That's sort of the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm glad they didn't mess with the style at all because you can't really mess with Chucks.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Still look like Chucks. This is an interesting fight brewing between Apple and the Federal Trade Commission. They are probing whether or not Apple Music is doing more harm than good for music streaming competition. The argument that they're saying is that if you own an iPhone, you don't have a choice. You will get Apple Music on your phone, and it will be streaming because you get that 3-month free Apple Music. And so they're saying that other streaming services like Pandora or Spotify, they can't compete because if you buy an iPhone or an Android or anything else, they don't come preloaded with the service, and so Apple might be.
Well, yeah. I mean, isn't that the whole point?
That's the whole thing with competition, right? Like it is their
cornering the
phone,
market with your own hardware.
It is their service.
Last time I checked, that's the idea of vertical integration.
Yeah,
Isn't that what that is? I'm not some economist, but I know that that's how you put a product together.
They did make the phone.
How the FTC handles this, because I agree with you. Look, they created this product. They created the demand for iPhones, which means they can put their product on their product.
Absolutely.
That's how it works.
I mean, I'm not some huge Apple apologist here,
Sure.
but that seems to me a pretty standard method of doing business. and operating, at least as far as this country is concerned. I build a thing, you get my thing, you get the other things I want to sell with my original thing.
That's how it goes.
Anyway.
By the way, speaking of someone who has been using Apple Music, I'm not a fan.
You don't like it?
I don't like it. I'm going. I'll pay.
I'm not
for
a big
Spotify.
streaming service guy.
I like Spotify. I do like Spotify.
Yeah, it's cool because you can share playlists, which is
you can share playlists. You can download them onto your phone and listen to them when you're on a plane or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like this Apple Music.
I gotta say though, I miss albums.
Really?
I miss buying an album and getting, like the liner notes and the lyrics.
You can still do that.
Yeah, you can still do it, but it is a dying phase.
Boy, it's been a while since I bought a CD.
A CD?
What about a record?
When was the last time I bought a record? I bought a record last week.
I buy
Portland
records
at Clinton Street Records.
Ooh.
I
haven't
West Coast.
I haven't bought a record in forever. I couldn't tell you the last time I bought like a hard piece of music.
Really? You're not a vinyl guy?
I'm not a vinyl guy.
I'll buy vinyl.
I was thinking about getting into vinyl, and then I was just kind of like, ugh.
I'm in a vinyl club. They send them to my house.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Like a Columbia House situation?
Yeah. They send you one a month, and it comes with, it's called, shameless plug here.
Go ahead, no.
It's called Vinyl Me Please, and you pay like $25 a month. They send you a random album, and it comes with like a piece of art that's not necessarily just, it's like some, whatever, motivated piece. And it's also got a drink recipe.
What?
That is awesome. Yes. I will be Googling this.
For the said album.
See, here's the thing. I love the idea. Personally, I already have too many vices. This would become a vice. This would become a problem.
Don't get it twisted. It's a little yupstery.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I get it. You know what I mean?
I get what
Sending
you're saying.
vinyls to my house. It's like I kind of wish I hadn't just admitted that on air. But the truth is that. But it's cool. You know what I mean? It gets you getting things that you wouldn't otherwise normally.
I like
get.
it.
That's the draw.
I like it.
Anyway.
To Yellowstone Park we go, where there was a woman, a 43-year-old woman from Mississippi. What?
Go on. If this is the story that I think it is, please go on.
43-year-old woman from Mississippi and her daughter tried to take a selfie with a wild bison. So she's on the trail, one of the trails in Yellowstone Park. She sees a bison. She is not, far away from the bison. She is 6 yards away.
Right.
She turns
She's
around.
She's an out route away.
Yeah. She turns around with her daughter. She goes to take the selfie, and as the daughter says, when they had their backs to the bison, pause.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't ever turn your back on a bison.
Don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. They turn their backs to the bison, and the daughter says, quote, "We heard the bison's footsteps moving toward us, and it started to run," end quote. But the bison caught the mother on the right side, lifted her up, and tossed her with his head. The woman went flying in the air. She landed. She's going to be okay. She went to the clinic in the park for treatment. She'll be fine. But the moral of the story here is, don't turn your back on a bison.
I thought the bison was getting closer for the picture, so it was a better shot.
Trying to lean in.
No, he had bad intentions.
Right, photobomb. So I read that story, and, sort of toward the bottom, it goes to the history of people getting messed up by animals in national parks. And I guess some time ago, a woman tried to sue the park, claiming that there was some negligence by the park because the same situation happened. And apparently at the time, the national park's lawyers argued that you should have been able to understand the credible threat via nature having an 800-pound horned beast in the wild.
That's right.
You don't need any signs in order to know that's a dangerous animal. You should be heeding caution when dealing with that type of a beast.
You will not find a bigger fan of the national parks than me. Mm-hmm. I love the national parks. And part of the reason that I love them is it's one of the last places in America that you could really mess yourself up.
Yeah.
You could really get hurt if you're not careful.
That's true.
And so, there is a little bit of, Darwin at work in these national parks, right? You can't just go in there and get tanked with your bros and go try
throwing rocks at
right. You will get messed up.
Yeah, good.
You will get messed up, and I'm all for it.
I have no sympathy
Use some
for these
common
people.
sense.
Listen, I don't want anybody to get hurt.
No.
But if you're out here screwing around with wild animals,
what do you expect?
Hey, you might get eaten.
Yeah.
It just might happen. National parks, we've talked about this all the time. That one girl, the lion dove through the window when she was trying to take a picture with the window down. Tried to warn you.
I feel bad, but
hey,
that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. Anyway. Thank you, Peter. Well, speaking of, never mind. I'm not going to say that. So, on a more serious note, there's a guy that's trying to run this country whose name is Donald Trump, and yesterday he took a trip down to the Mexico border, and he was rather nattily attired, if I may note myself. He was wearing one of those caps. So like when you go to, I don't know, you go on vacation to like a beach town or something, and you need a hat for the weekend, but you're not going to buy something truly super expensive. You just want something that's going to kind of indicate, yeah, I'm at the beach, you know what I mean? Like, and it's mesh, and it's probably ill-fitting, but it's got one of those little strings.
You're throwing it away when you get home.
You're throwing it away when you get home. It's got one of those little strings on the front that you don't really know what it's there for.
You know what we're talking about.
Right. Especially if it's not the same, like if it's the same color as the material, it's just and people who think they're real cool will like stick things in there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, to indicate like, yo, I'm so party conscious and like I can really, life hack all my gear. I'll stick a pen in there. I'll stick a cigarette box in there.
Yeah.
You've seen people do this. Is very Bush League, and I've seen this many times.
It's the dad strap.
It's the dad strap.
The dad strap.
Donald Trump was wearing one of those, and the hat said, what did it say? Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
In like just regular colors, looked like something out of, I don't know, a Different Strokes episode.
Like blue on white.
Right. It was very, very basic. And he got down there, and he talked a lot about illegal immigration, and he believes that him simply arriving at the border is a very, very important thing for this country and a very, very dangerous proposition.
I say it's a great danger, but I have to do it. I love the country. There's nothing more important than what I'm doing.
Well, okay, first of all, and even for the king of hyperbole that is Donald Trump, there's nothing more important than what I'm doing. I mean, what is he doing? He just showed up down there and talked into a bunch of cameras, and he said the problem there is solvable in his opinion.
People realize the problem we have in this country with illegal immigration, and it's going to be solved, it's going to be fixed, and this group will do such a job. If they're allowed to do their job, there's no doubt in anybody's mind it'll be taken care of.
Now, the group he's talking about is the Border Patrol Union. Is that right, Alyssa?
Yeah, the Border Patrol Union, who would not meet with him yesterday.
Right. So he is literally just throwing a circus. Just comes to the border, throws a circus, says a couple things, and acts as if all of a sudden he is the new hardline man on immigration. Now, mind you, this is not a new stance for him. This is what he's been saying for a long time. But this gets to a larger point here, which is, look, how long is this going to go? I mean, how long who is Donald Trump, who is leading most GOP polls for the presidential nomination, how long does this circus continue? And an extension, you wonder, at some point, is this good or bad for Democrats? Because the longer this goes, the longer you've got to believe people actually consider him to be a legitimate candidate. At which point, if the dam is totally broken, that's got to make somebody nervous on the left side of the aisle. Give me a phone call. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. How long does the Trump show last? And is this or is this not a good thing for the Dems? Peter?
I think that Trump has – I don't think Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. I really don't. I don't think that he's got that kind of staying
Do you think
power.
He will be on the medal stand?
Yes. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I'll tell you why. I think that he has some popularity for the same reason that Bernie Sanders has a lot of popularity, in that these guys are anti-politicians. They speak what's on their mind. They don't BS, right? Yeah. They don't beat around the bush. And the difference, of course, is they both speak their minds, but Donald Trump is just wrong, right? Like everybody keeps saying, like, oh, we want a politician who speaks their mind, who's just fresh and just like doesn't have a filter. Great, you got him.
Right.
He just happens to be really, really wrong on a lot of issues. And I think that's going to catch up with him at some point. But a lot of people love, maybe not Donald Trump himself, but the idea of Donald Trump. And that will take him far.
Let's get back to that when we get back on the other side of the break. Give me a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. How long does the Trump circus last? And is this guy good or bad for Democrats? I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
Justice Environment Room. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. Fill it in for Bill here on a Friday. Taking your phone calls about Donald Trump. How long does this circus last? And is he or is he not good for the Democrats in terms of the presidential nomination, in terms of where that race goes. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Stephen in Aurora, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm well.
I don't know if the Republicans really hate him. Why haven't they torn him apart? When he announced his nomination, he had to put out a casting call and pay actors $50 a head to show up. Now, let me go a little further. I'm a union member at IBEW, and I know that Trump is historically late on paying contractors for working on his buildings. He's made his money off of screwing the working man and profiting off the working man. Why do people think, because he's going to say all these talking points, I'm for this, I'm for that. My biggest beef with the Republicans is with the immigration. Can I get one? Yes. With the immigration, when President Reagan signed the amnesty bill, he also put in an enforcement part in it to stop the illegal aliens. That it was signed into law. We got 15 million new illegal aliens since then, because the law and order Republicans looked the other way, so the farmers and U.S. business can exploit the cheap labor.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate the phone call. All right, that was a good phone call until it wasn't a good phone call. We're talking about Donald Trump here on the Bill Press Show. That was an interesting point of view. You know who else's point of view we're going to get? Mr. Larry Wilmore, because he did a great bit last night, and we're not going to do that? Okay, well,
we'll have to do that later. We don't have time.
Well, that's a funny bit. You know why? Because it talks about how black people really like Donald Trump, which is kind of true on some levels. We're going to get to that later. But look, I think what's really fascinating to me about this is that they got a decision to make.
Yeah.
Do you support this guy, or do you throw him out to the wind? And if you throw him out to the wind, does he go for a third-party run? He just might. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press. It's Friday. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earthalluia.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in here for Bill on a Friday. All right, I'm taking a deep breath here because we got to talk about the situation that happened down in Texas, Waller County, a place that has been known for its not exactly great practices when it comes to discrimination in America. In the case of Sandra Bland, look, if you've been following anything in this country, you sort of understand where we are at this point. She was pulled over for not signaling a lane change, and a couple days later was found dead in her jail cell. Look, over the past couple months, the Black Lives Matter movement has been something that a lot of people have not really understood. It's been something that a lot of people have rallied behind. We even saw people like Cardale Jones, who plays quarterback for the Ohio State University Buckeyes, shame some guy who tried to tell him that Black Lives Matter wasn't important. That's a young man who really has his head screwed on straight and is a good football player. So my point is, you can see how far down the American sort of social psyche this movement is going, and we'll talk to a guest later more about that and how that's affecting the presidential race. But let me break down in simple terms sort of why Black Lives Matter makes sense to you. And the Sandra Bland case is one of those that really, really embodies what that movement is about. We're talking about a woman here who was pulled over for not signaling a lane change. Police officer pulls her over. She's smoking a cigarette. And if you watch the dash cam video, police officer is a white male, young guy, I guess, and he, through his own simple, just human interaction, is so perturbed with the fact that she is not 100% obedient with him that he out threatening her, to which she says, "Bring it on." Now, a lot of people will sit and tell you, well, if you just cooperate with the police, you won't end up dead. But the only people that end up dead when they're not cooperating with police are people of color.
Yeah.
That's where you get the delineation between so-called all lives matter and Black Lives Matter. You get wacko white guys that threaten the police all the time. And pardon me for using the term wacko. I'm saying that sort of loosely, but you know my point here. I mean, I'm reckless and dangerous. Pointing guns at police officers, all sorts of things. Shooting people in movie theaters. They don't end up dead. And if you want to know why that hashtag matters to people, take a look at the Sandra Bland case. You've got crazy conspiracy theories out there that I don't really want to give a lot of credence to right now about how she may have died and about what may or may not have happened. But the point is that initial stop, watch the dash cam video, watch the video and look at the interaction between the two of them. Sandra Bland was a 6-foot-tall black woman who was not taking any crap from an officer who was being a jerk and turned around to chase her after she didn't signal a lane change. You cannot tell me that race wasn't a part of that. You cannot tell me that on some level misogyny wasn't a part of that. When you mix the two of those things together, you end up with a situation where he's screaming, "You just need to behave," or "You just need to cooperate, and then I'll tell you why I'm arresting you." That's not how it works, Peter.
Right. I don't want to take away from the race aspect of this because there's no way that this would have happened to a white man, right? But a lot of levels, because you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the obedience factor here. It reminded me in a lot of ways of the Eric Garner situation in New York, where the cops are just kind of pushing this guy into being obedient.
Yeah.
And you know what? Well within your rights to not do what they're asking of these people. She's well within her rights to smoke a cigarette in her car. Police officer can't like.
That's not illegal.
That's not illegal.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're in your car.
Right.
Like, okay, white, black, Democrat, Republican, whatever. We have rights in this country.
Yeah.
You can do those things and not get screamed at by a police officer. And I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory of all this because they've ruled it a suicide, that she hanged herself in her jail cell, which is a tough thing to pull off.
Yeah.
Number one. But let's just take it at what they are saying, right? That there was a lining in the trash can, like a trash bag, that she used to fashion something to hang herself with. They also were quick to point out that she had attempted suicide before.
Mm-hmm.
So you just take these facts as they are putting them out there. Why in the world would you put her in a cell with something that she could use to kill herself with when you know that she's, like, if they're saying, oh, well, she said that she had attempted suicide before. Well, why would you put her in that situation?
Well, then why wouldn't you take more precautions?
Why would you take it seriously? Right? So, like, even if you believe what they're saying, which I do not, they handle this incredibly poorly.
Absolutely agreed.
Just so poorly.
Absolutely agreed. And if you want to understand the difference between All Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter, I believe I read this on Twitter, and I wish I had. I faved it, but it's long gone now. I can't remember who said it. But so the difference in America is that white people are governed and black people are policed. And if you think about sort of what that means, it means that up until the point of humanity and respect, yes, everybody is treated the same. But when it comes time to check your freedoms, you're not. And I don't want to, maybe we can tweet this out at BP Show, Peter, the dash cam video. Yep. It's about 8 minutes long, and the audio is pretty much pristine. And there will be a lot of you that will watch that and say, well, listen to this woman. She's cussing him out. She's calling him all kinds of names. Well, again, you're allowed to do that, just in case you didn't know. Yeah. It's not illegal to curse at an officer, especially if you're sitting in your car minding your business. And there's a lot of people that will look at that and say, she had it coming. You, my friend, if you think that, need to reevaluate your priorities. It's about 8 minutes long. It's worth a watch because, again, it's the kind of thing where when you see the full tale of how it all unfolds, you recognize how quickly and how easy it is for so many law enforcement officers to disrespect people. And I want to make another side point here, which is that very specifically, black women are treated with a level of violence that is not respected in the same way that every other demographic who has to contend with police are. I mean, it's a double dagger, and it is specifically hyper-dehumanizing the way a lot of these women are treated when it comes to law enforcement. It's disgusting, it's disheartening, and it's distasteful. Just want to make that clear. We got a couple pieces of audio here from this story that I want to get to. And the assistant DA, he talked about whether or not this was a homicide and whether or not it was voluntary.
The question in this case is, was it a voluntary suicide or was it a homicide in the Waller County Jail?
Now, it's interesting that they even addressed that at all, because it leaves open the notion that people think, yeah, this might not have been on the up and up. You know, I mean, for the assistant DA to say that to me, it indicates that there is some level of probability that they think that this might not have been exactly how it went. Let's hear from the inmate who was across the cell from her, across the hall, I believe. I'm sure the layout of the jail, but was in the jail when Sandra Bland came in.
I don't know what to think about it. I know that I don't think the guards did anything for sure.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, it's hard to say, but again, this case really, really should hurt you if you are an American that believes in any sort of civil liberties when it comes to dealing with the police. I mean, again, you feel one way about it when you see the video from the long distance where she says, "Thank you for recording. Thank you for recording." And it's really, really sad. But then when you see that dash cam, you realize this escalated basically because that guy felt, just like in the Eric Garner case, as you mentioned, Peter, that he had to control that woman.
Yeah.
Because she was out of line.
There's a misconception, I think, among a lot of people, and certainly among police officers that I've seen. Like, police officers, at their core, they should be trained to de-escalate situations.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Yes.
That's what they should be doing,
right.
That's what I should say. That's what they should be. That is their job. And it's very, very clear when you watch this dash cam video, he escalated this situation.
Big time.
Everything was fine.
Big time.
First of all, the pulling over for not using your signal is a BS reason, right? Like,
right.
Starting there.
Exactly.
But, like, chill out. You've got to calm the situation down. You've got to get the situation in control, not the person under control. It's bad police work.
It is. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Neville in Illinois, how are you this morning?
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm well. You're on the air.
Good. I'm on the air, huh?
Yes.
That's good. Yeah, I listened to what you guys were saying. One thing struck me as funny, though, okay? A 6-foot woman, probably weighing upwards of over 200 pounds. There's no garbage tied to her weight. Make any sense? Something is very fishy here, okay? And where does she hang it from? Instead of a jail cell. I've been arrested before. I've been harassed before. I've sat in a jail cell before. There's nothing in there for you to hang your shoelaces from. Nothing.
All right, thank you, Neville. Listen, I don't know the layout of the Waller County jails, and I also don't have any idea how much Sandra Bland weighed. I mean, I'm not a forensic scientist on that level. But, I mean, I think his concern is valid, which is that, black folks are always considered to be doing these magical things, shooting themselves in when they're handcuffed in the back of cop cars, all these sort of like ridiculous situations that whatever. Look, it's scary and it's frightening. And if you care about America, you should check out that video and talk to the people around you about it. Listen, when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Black Lives Matter situation. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. Friday. This is still America. Do the right thing.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What up, kiddos? I'm Clinton Yates. I write for The Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill Press here. It's Friday, July 24th. On the line, we've got National Communications Director for the Working Families Party and contributor to The Nation, Joe Dinkin. Good morning, Joe.
Hi, Clinton. Thanks for having me on the show this morning.
No problem. So let's get right to it. The headline says, Bernie Sanders blew a huge opportunity at Netroots Nation. Please explain that to the listeners.
Sure. So people probably know Netroots Nation is one of the biggest annual gatherings of progressives in America. And Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley were both present for a presidential candidates forum. And what happened was a group of Black Lives Matter protesters disrupted the event and asked both candidates to say her name, to acknowledge the recent tragic and mysterious death of Sandra Bland, a woman who died mysteriously in police custody after a traffic stop in Texas, and to answer questions about racial justice and about structural racism in America. And the truth is, both of the two candidates did a pretty poor job in the moment of kind of responding to their questions. O'Malley's answer included the phrase "White Lives Matter," which a lot of people bristle at for good reason. But Bernie Sanders, his answer was, to me, disappointingly, not much better. He appeared to kind of ignore the people who wanted to hear about racial justice and stick to his script on talking to economic justice only. And, I come to this point of view, from the point of view of a fan of Bernie, of somebody who wants to see him succeed and thrive because of the career he's spent, really elevating issues of economic inequality and the control of Wall Street.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is that why is this a bigger thing for Bernie than it is for O'Malley? I mean, I think O'Malley, a guy who's been a lot closer to a lot of this stuff, really put himself further away from what people thought he was versus Bernie, who is still, in a lot of minds, kind of a marginal character when it comes to national politics.
Yeah, I think that's right. Though the recent polls have shown Bernie rising, and he's in an interesting situation because Bernie is approaching the teens and towards 20% in national polls. He's doing quite a bit better than O'Malley right now. And in New Hampshire and Iowa, he's pulled into single-digit races or close to it against Secretary Clinton, but the doubt in a lot of people's minds is whether he can really continue much past those states without being able to build much more substantial support among people of color. That people of color were asking him to speak to, and I stood there and watched as he talked about the need for a democratic revolution in America. And ignored the one that he was staring in the face. Now, I don't think that's final. I think he still has a chance to recover from that, and I certainly hope he does. But there on the stage at Netroots Nation, he sort of missed the opportunity to remake his image.
We're talking with Joe Dinkin, who's the National Communications Director for the Working Families Party and a contributor to The Nation here on the Bill Press Show. Let's move forward from that. I'll ask you, how much do you think the Black Lives Matter movement is going to affect the presidential race continuing down the line? I mean, this was no small interruption of a very large event, and a lot of people were flatly offended that this was the platform that a lot of them used to try to get their message out there. Do you think this is something that just as a general practice we'll see again?
Yeah, I think we will. It's the issues that the Black Lives Matter protests have been elevating, especially around police violence and deaths in police custody, are things that a lot of white Americans frankly don't know about and actually have to hear about and have to learn about, even if it takes disruption to daily routine to make people understand it. And I think movements have a way of changing the national discourse and the national dialogue. I remember it wasn't too long ago that the Occupy Wall Street movement created the idea of the 99% and the 1%. And, economic inequality wasn't a new phenomenon, but after the sort of rise of the Occupy moment, we actually started to see movement on some of those kinds of issues a lot more quickly. The fact that we started to see the Fight for 15, for example, take off in the post-Occupy Wall Street moment, I don't think was a surprise. And, just yesterday, that sort of impulse had its latest victory with 200,000 fast food workers in New York State winning $15 an hour minimum they'll get over the next few years. So I think equally the Black Lives Matter movement is a really important intervention that will help America come to grips with a real problem that needs fixing and that we haven't yet.
All right, Joe, I got to run, but I appreciate you coming on, and thank you very much. He's the National Communications Director for the Working Families Party and a contributor to The Nation. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA?
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break.
All right, welcome back to the program. Let's get something settled right here. Yesterday, Merriam-Webster tweeted out that it was National Hot Dog Day and that a hot dog is a sandwich. A hot dog is not a sandwich.
Oh, man.
I don't care what Peter says. There's only one piece of bread on a hot dog. It's not a sandwich. You know why? Because it's a hot dog. Hot dogs are their own thing. Sandwiches are different things. Go tell your kids that. What kind of craziness is this?
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the Action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's me, Friday, July 24th, 2015. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill here. I want to thank you all for tuning in or watching live on Free Speech TV and Talker TV. Of course, you can find Free Speech TV on DirecTV and on Dish. Talker TV you can find at youtube.com/Talker TV. We're tweeting at BP Show, as always. Peter Mans that. And 866-55-PRESS, 866-5577-377 is the phone number. Peter's here. Elisa's running the board. Jamie's on the phones. Monty's on the video. Got a lot to get to here, including talk about Jerry curled athletes. There's a lot going on with that. I wrote a story about it. Pedro Martinez going into the Hall of Fame.
So good.
First ballot Hall of Famer on Jerry curl alone, as some people would say. We're going to talk some media stuff, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. This is a big story just now breaking. The European Medicines Agency has approved the world's first malaria vaccine.
Really?
Yeah, right? This is never, we haven't seen anything like this before. It's been in trials for 30 years.
Hey, that's why you keep trying.
They keep trying, and they finally have what they think could work as a vaccine for malaria. It could be administered to children across Africa within the next couple of years as they roll it out. But they are celebrating this morning in Africa, again, as the European Medicines Agency has approved this malaria vaccine.
That's awesome. Malaria is vicious.
Oh, it's terrible.
It really is.
It doesn't really come across our radar that much here, but it is devastating.
Yeah.
A new survey released yesterday shows that almost 2/3 of Americans think that the 8-hour workday is dead. They think it is a thing of the past.
Meaning longer or shorter?
Longer hours.
Yeah, okay.
A study from Career Builder took a look at men and women and how they think that their workday plays out. And they said with these things, phones, you're never really off the clock.
That's true.
Answering emails at the dinner table on your phone and waking up and checking your email before you ever get to work, that the idea of going in and working 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is over and done with.
Rashida Jones is on the cover of the new Wired magazine and talks about life hacking and trying to balance your career with your actual life.
Yeah.
And she talks about how she has a strict 1 hour no phones rule with her writing partner where they literally have to put the phones in a separate room while they write in order to get at least that 1 hour productivity, because otherwise it just won't happen.
I'm sort of doing something similar, right? It is unsettling.
Yeah.
I do not like that feeling. Which says a lot about where we are.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think it's a good thing, but it is not comfortable.
It's hard to break away.
Yeah. And Donald Trump, of course, is making the rounds. He's giving lots of interviews. He, in fact, on Wednesday gave an interview to The Hill magazine, and he ended the interview by asking his assistant to bring over their phone so that he could blast the song Donald Trump by rapper Mac Miller.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Donald Trump says, quote, "Do you have that Mac Miller thing? I want to see how many hits." The YouTube video, by the way, has 99 million views as of yesterday. Trump, I'm reading from the Hill article here, almost 100 million hits, Trump says, nodding his head. They see this crazy life I have, and they in awe. We gonna win. We gonna take the lose or draw, Miller raps in the song. By the way, Trump says, great song.
Mac Miller.
Mac Miller.
Wow. That's great. Pittsburgh native Mac Miller. That is a great story. Wow. I was trying to find a way not to think about Donald Trump every time I heard that song. Not that it's really possible because the song is named after him, but, it is one of those things. Speaking of which, on the line, we have media reporter for Politico, Hadas Gold. You can find her on Twitter at Hadas_Gold. Good morning, Hadas. How are you?
Hi, good morning. How are you guys doing?
I'm okay. We were talking about Donald Trump and his proclivity to listen to frat rap, but I want to ask you about what this guy's life is like on the actual tour. I mean, he showed up at the border yesterday, and there were cameras upon recorder upon recorder. This circus is, dare I say, bigger than I imagined because people have to take him seriously. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of sort of the hubbub this guy has built up so far, even if not even from a policy standpoint, just from the draw he's getting?
We thought that the Hillary Clinton media circus was a circus, and then we thought Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the border around at the border yesterday, and he said he'd never seen anything like that before. I mean, maybe unless he's covered Kim Kardashian, he's seen something like that.
Right.
But really had not, and it's just such like a just crazy time. You know, he came down to the border, and the Border Patrol union that was supposed to be with him canceled at the last minute. So Donald Trump just kind of goes down there and just takes a quick tour. But, you know, to get down there for Donald Trump involves like flying in his jumbo jet. He has a huge motorcade that's probably bigger than the president's motorcade with all the security and everything. And he, like you said, actually, he does love talking to the press. So many people have gotten interviews with him, and you know us media, you know, you give us an interview, we'll take it. And especially with somebody like Donald Trump, who is just on everybody's mind right now, and he's really riling up the field.
Do you think that he is, and you know, this is kind of hard to say, but, you know, there are obviously a lot of different outlets that cover him. Some are going to be more partisan than others, but, you know, amongst GOP media or right-wing media, even those, you know, we're not talking about the politicians, but those that cover him, you know, do you think he's liked on a certain level, or is it just sort of a tolerated thing at this point?
If he's liked,
meaning, is he bringing page clicks? You know what I mean? Like, is it worth their time to really do this, or is it just sort of a sideshow? Because, you know, we had that whole incident with the Huffington Post moving him into entertainment, but is this guy sort of worth the time from a working standpoint?
I think he's definitely worth the time because, you know, I know that people have an issue with the polls. They're like, oh, it's too early. If you look at the polls, people are just naming who they like based off of name ID, but you know, that matters especially now because of the debates, because of how the debates have been set up. If the debates had not been set up based off of these national polls, then maybe you could argue, like, it doesn't matter, like, but, you know, these polls will determine who will be on the debate stage, which is one of the most important events for the election for people to get to know these people. So that's why I think it's really important for us to cover him, you know. And the American public is paying attention, and he's saying things that are riling up the rest of the field. The rest of the field is responding to him. You know, it's also just fun. we're really early in the competition right now, and like you said, he does do crazy well on websites. If you look at Politico.com, his stories are regularly in our top 10 most read. Usually, it's like 4 out of the 10 of our top 10.
Sort of the effect of Trump on the other candidates, because there are so many Republicans in the race that it's easy for their names to kind of get lost in the shuffle. But one person who clearly got a little help from Trump this week was Lindsey Graham, when Trump straight up gave his cell phone number out to America.
Right.
But Lindsey Graham, I mean, he got a lot of attention for that. And he certainly milked it, too.
I mean, in one sense, part of me in the back of my head has this conspiracy theory that, like, Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and he's either there to help the Democrats or thinks he's helping the Republicans for whatever reason by bringing so much attention to the primary race early that other people would normally be paying attention, and then he's bringing up, you know, all these people. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Lindsey Graham, you got to hand it to him. He handled it pretty well. We actually, one of my to him the moment that Donald Trump gave the number out and chatted with Lindsey. And Lindsey we actually informed him what had happened because he was saying, like, oh, that's why my phone's ringing off the hook. And you know that Lindsey doesn't use email, and he uses a flip phone. So to have his one method of communication suddenly be caught up, you guys were talking earlier about, like, taking breaks from your phone, things like that. Lindsey's old school. So to have that happen was a big deal for him, and he was, you know, showing off, you know, all these text messages he's getting. Yeah, and then he did this, you know, quick thinking on their part, and they teamed up with a new website called newish website called IJ Review, and filmed this really fun video where he's shown just destroying his cell phone. But it's bringing attention to all these different people. And I actually wrote a story last week about how all these other candidates are getting trumped because they're trying to get attention like this. You know, Rand Paul literally took a chainsaw to the tax code and couldn't get as much attention as Donald Trump giving out Lindsey Graham's cell phone.
That is true.
That's hilarious.
It is funny. We're talking with Hadas Gold, the media reporter for Politico. You can find her on Twitter at Hadas_Gold. I want to switch gears here a little bit to the situation happening in New York with Gawker Media. Those of us that are really inside have been watching this very intently. I don't know that sort of the larger mass of America necessarily cares or necessarily really understands what's happening here. But Gawker Media is a collection of sites that started with Gawker. They were known for their snarky, often, how do I say this, mean-spirited posts about people. And recently they got into a situation with a man who was potentially seeking an escort, and they ended up taking the story down. Can you describe what's happening and a bit of the fallout for those who don't otherwise know?
Right, so that post that you're describing was up for maybe 24 hours. And, yeah, like you said, Gawker a lot of times is kind of seen as like, you know, the burn book for Mean Girls, kind of like that. But they have, I mean, to their credit, they've done some really great journalism and revealed some really, like, fascinating things in the past. But, yeah, they're snarky. And that's part of their brand. But they posted this story, and some people argued that there was no point in doing this because this person, while an executive at a big company, was in no way a public figure in the same way that, say, a politician or, again, like Kim Kardashian might be, somebody who's put themselves out there. It was a very deeply sourced story, but it also seemed a little bit one-sided, I think some people would argue. And within 24 hours, it was taken down. And just the act of taking it down was something that really affected a lot of Gawker staff. And as a result, two of their top editors, Tommy Craig's and Max Reed, resigned. And it was a big deal. And Nick Dinkin, who founded Gawker, has been kind of explaining himself to staff, and he's really softened his tone. I mean, if you look at interviews from Nick Dinkin 4 years ago, even 2 years ago, it's a much different guy than the guy now. I mean, he's gotten married recently. They're trying to adopt a child, so you can kind of see the personal side softening. But he has actually told his staff last night, he actually took them out, the whole staff he took out in Brooklyn for like a night out to try and explain what's going on. And they're going to be relaunching pretty much on Monday with a nice tweet, called it like 20% nicer Gawker. And they might even be changing the name. Because as he's described to his staff, it's hard to sell advertisements on Gawker.
Wow.
Or at least it's harder than it should be considering how much traffic they get. Advertisers are scared. You know, they don't know what Gawker's going to come up with. They're a little bit, you know, unpredictable. They might be outing your own executive the next day. You don't know.
Right. I'm sorry. Changing the name. I mean, own what you've done.
Yeah.
Like, you've created an empire on this. You need to own that.
And his staff is incredibly frustrated because that's what they signed up for. That's what they thought. They thought they were like kind of at the bad boy of media. They weren't afraid of anything. They weren't afraid to take anybody down. And now some of them feel like, you know, Nick is softening, and that's why, you know, Tommy and Max left. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more staff leaving as well.
Were you surprised that they took the story down? And B, do you think that this will affect the larger collection of sites, the Deadspins, the Jezebels, the Kotakus, and all that? Do you think this is something that will stay reserved into the initial sort of Gawker news site itself?
I mean, it's up to Nick. I mean, Nick can choose to affect all of these sites, and I'm sure it will, because Gawker is kind of the masthead, the lead of all of these other sites. It would probably most affect things like Jezebel. Actually, if you look at, there's an old story from Jezebel where one reporter like called out a celebrity's baby name, calling it like the worst scum on earth or something. And as I'm sure you know, Gawker is incredibly transparent. This whole last saga of the couple weeks has been just playing out in full view. So Nick actually responded to the reporter's story in the comments and saying, like, do you really have to do that? Like, this is a baby, this is someone's life, this is a child.
Wow.
And you can really just see the changing. And, I mean, can you imagine if every media company laid out, their inner workings the same way Gawker has been? They have been, I mean, they're all known for transparency, but, like, MSNBC or the New York Times doing something like that, that's just Gawker.
No way in hell. You're right. Well, thank you very much, Hadas. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Good to talk to you. It's media reporter for Politico. Or you don't publish it. I mean, I understand why they did that, but you know what? I didn't think it was that news value. It didn't have that much news value to begin with.
It was a weird piece to write, but it's not really that weird in the context of Gawker.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just not.
Anyway, all right. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill. We'll be back. It's Friday.
This is the Bill Press Show.
have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more. I'm tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here. Friday. Let's stick with the media beat here a little bit and talk about a couple different stories that we saw that are sort of following a couple of people around, one of which is the LA Times with their Black Twitter beat.
Yeah.
And the guy who, started writing that column, and the first thing he writes about is transphobia in the Black Twitter community and Tyga and all this other stuff. And it wasn't just that it was off base, but it was like the kind of thing where it's like you drive through a town and you stop at the gas station and then you want to tell everybody what the entire town is talking about and thinking about. And it's like, no, that's really not how it works. That week there was a whole growing up black hashtag. There was all sorts of stuff. And, I remember when I first heard that this beat was going to be launched, I sort of thought, this is probably a good idea. If you can find a way to shed a little light on black culture, even if it is through the guise of the very singular sort of black Twitter lens, if you do it right, well, it's another avenue in order to get some more voices out there, but wasn't done right at all.
There's so many people out there who haven't been exposed to what it's like to be black. Right? Like, for obvious reasons, of course, but for if you didn't grow up in an area where there were a lot of black people and you weren't didn't have black friends, you never had that experience. So black Twitter is wonderful,
vital,
crucial in that regard
to understanding what's going on in the world.
The last couple of years, so much about black culture has become mainstream culture.
Yeah,
and it's a really, really interesting beat.
It's very true. But listen. Here's the thing about black Twitter. Don't make the mistake of thinking the black Twitter is only about the black people that are on Twitter. That's the bottom line. Speaking of black people, we're going to get the thoughts of the Larry Wilmore Show on Donald Trump and black folks.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be back. I'm Clinton Yates, The Bill Press Show.
Hey, what's up, Larry? Okay, so Mike, it sounds like John Kasich is, he's trying to sound inclusive. Do you think he can appeal to the black vote?
The black vote's already wrapped up, man. It's Trump.
Wait. Trump?
Yeah, Larry, this dude is 90s hip-hop all day, man. Well, think about it, Larry.
Right.
Trump likes gold.
Yeah.
He rolls deep. He had his own vodka.
Yeah.
He's got his own cologne. He's got tons of baby mamas. He's had court appearances, and he's dealt with bankruptcies.
Wow. That is amazing. So, wait, hold on. So you think black people like him because he seems like a 90s rapper?
90s, early aughts, whatever. I mean, look, did you see when he pissed off Neil Young by using his music? This dude is even jacking beats, Larry.
This is the Bill Press Show.
If you're like most people, you have...
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. On the line, we have media reporter for the International Business Times, Brendan James. You can find him on Twitter at @deep_beige. First question, Brendan, what is that handle about?
You know, that's a great question. It's sort of an inside joke on the show The Thick of It, which is the British precursor to Veep, which I'm sure more of your audience probably is familiar with. But there's a lot of nicknames that fly around on that show. And one of them, mocking someone, instead of calling them Deep Blue, they call them Deep Beige to indicate that they don't think much of them and that they're quite wafery and unimpressive. And I thought that was a snappy handle.
That is good. I like it. It's a very good.
Thank you.
So back to the more important matters. Let's talk about Gawker Media. So they had, we just got through talking about this with another guest, and I'm sort of the opinion that if you're going to publish that story, you need to leave it up. But at the same time, you're balancing that with the damage that you've already done by publishing it to begin with. Were you surprised that they took it down and did so in such a short amount of time?
Well, I was actually at a party when that all happened with a lot of Gawker people.
Really? Whoa, okay.
Yeah,
So let's get into that.
Yeah, my media
Brendan is
reporter.
very influential. I don't know if you knew this. He's a thinkfluencer.
Deep beige.
Yeah, do not cross me at any point during this interview. No, I was actually on vacation. I just started my new gig here at IBT, and I thought I would do what anyone else does on their vacation and attend media parties. And I went to this one, and I didn't stay long enough. My instincts were horrible when stuff really hit the fan, and the backlash started to happen. But I did see, this post go up while I was there, and the next day, I got home then later, and I saw that, there was just an immediate and extremely harsh reaction on social media and from other journalists and Gawker's readers. And so the next day, I did expect it to come down. I can tell you that from talking to Gawker people, a lot of them are obviously upset about the procedure here. Not all of them are terribly upset that the post itself is scrubbed. But others say, that it should have been a correction or rather a retraction. And, they'll point to other instances of, say, the New York Times, doing reporting on something and then it turning out to be, in bad taste or false or poorly sourced or questionable in any way. And they leave the post up, but it's online, but they have a retraction and they disown it. Right. And that's what a lot of people within Gawker wanted to see happen.
Let me play devil's avocado for just a moment, if I could.
Please.
Was this post any worse than some of the other posts that Gawker has put up in your eyes?
Well, the post that it was most compared to, I think, was this one from a long time ago, back when Deloria was still at Gawker. and it was about, I think there was some series on rendezvous between sports fans and teams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a video of a girl or a woman, that was supposed to be just kind of this salacious, meeting between a fan and the team, but it was actually a lot more questionable as to what was really going on and whether it was, an assault or something really brutal. And Deloria did regret posting that later. He's on record saying that we had poor judgment there. We didn't look into it enough. At the time, it was similar to the initial reaction from Max Reed at Gawker. They stood with it and they said, no, this is what Gawker does. But later they kind of regretted it. And that was the closest incident to what happened the other day that I saw float around. As to whether or not it's worse than anything else Gawker's done, I would leave that up to the judgment of the readers. But Nick Denton certainly felt that at least these days that's too far. Maybe it's not out of line with what Gawker's done in the past. I'm sure everyone can think of a Gawker post they found distasteful or whatever. But nowadays, the internet is a different place. This has been, said a lot in the past week or so. And Gawker is not in the same environment it was when it cut its teeth. And they need to pull back. And so what I wrote about yesterday was Denton's thesis here about the Gawker tax, which he's told a lot of people about. And he views it as, the premium Gawker has to pay, or rather the discount that ad buyers get, because Gawker is just a riskier place to put your ads, and they can't attract people as easily as what Denton compares to, say, Vox. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he's thinking about. He also said, morally it wasn't right, but he's thinking about his business strategy here.
Right. We're talking with media reporter for the International Business Times, Brendan James, here on the Bill Press Show. Look, though, this is what Gawker does. And I think that you have to, when you consider the way Denton is going with this, and you look at sort of the track record of not just that particular site, but that consortium of sites, they've got to really be questioning their entire strategy, model, and existence. If you're going to change what that is, they might not be able to charge as much for ad dollars, but I also might not go read it unless I'm going to be able to find my Ron Mexico stories or things of that ilk. You know what I mean? That's what we're talking about here. If they're going to change fundamentally what they do, are they going to be able to get anybody to read them?
Yeah, that's the sort of compromise that Denton faces here. And people that I spoke to in the marketing and ad world, which was really the focus of my reporting, they think that there's a not a middle ground, but a place for Gawker to still be Gawker and not alienate advertisers. But people within Gawker that I've been speaking to, they're concerned, and they're just basically worried that Gawker's going to be around, but it's a question of whether or not they're going to want to work there, and whether Denton is now using this as a pivot to turn it into a place where in midstream it's no longer their site and no longer a place that they want to contribute. And readers, and maybe a place that readers aren't going to go to. But I really think from the people I've been speaking to that it's not quite so drastic of a change that Denton's looking to affect here. He just wants to kind of grow up a little bit is kind of how he talks about it. Still be confrontational, still be edgy, still, shun access, tactics or not trying to be, one of the compromised media outlets that schmooze and back down from more confrontational stories, but just not run stuff that's quite so either invasive or mean, maybe, as that post about the CFO.
Well, that sucks, because that's what Gawker is. How do you think
it's called Gawker?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, is it though going to be called Gawker for much more? Because on I don't think a lot of people picked up on this, but on Wednesday he did an interview with DigiDay. And he said at the end of the interview, it was buried at the end of the interview, he said that Gawker's name may have to change, as part of a reboot, which he says begins on Monday. I don't know if the name's going to change on Monday, but he says on Monday he wants there to be a reboot, and he says that may entail eventually changing Gawker's name. He could have just been spitballing, but to your point, maybe it won't be called Gawker for that much longer.
That's crazy to me, by the way. By the way, so when I first fell in love with Gawker, personal story here, was when they used to write about the shenanigans in the New York Media Softball League and how ridiculous the game is. This is early days, and I, for whatever reason, found that incredibly fascinating, and it was just the stupidest thing in the world. But listen, how do you think this affects the all of the sites, the Deadspins, the Gizmodos, the IO9? I mean, because there's one thing for Gawker itself. There's another thing for all these other sites that sort of
the Gawker Media Empire.
The Gawker Media Empire that has established itself on a slightly different credo than, say, Defamer or Deadspin, but is still under the umbrella. How do they get affected by this?
I don't see a lot of tinkering going on with the other sites. Certainly not Deadspin or IO9 or Lifehacker and things like that. It's the flagship site. That's what kicked up this storm. That's what Denton's worried about. And there's really no apparent issue that I'm aware of with any of these other sites and how they do their business or their editorial tone or anything like that. And so we're really, I think, looking at a potential shift in the flagship site and not much more, because no one's complained about Deadspin. I don't think advertisers, none that spoke to me or people in that world spoke to me about worrying about what Deadspin is creeping up to the line in any given post or anything like that.
So, last question I'll ask you: what do you think is coming Monday with this 20% nicer Gawker or whatever? I mean, what do you think it's actually coming next?
I'd like to talk to Nick. And see if he'll divulge anything, because I honestly couldn't guess. He could surprise all of us and have a totally new name and enterprise cooked up. But they're moving offices right now. That's something people may not know. A lot of people are working remotely now. I don't think anything super big. Well, I'm told nothing super big is probably going to happen in this time of transition for them. They're moving to an office. They've got a long-term lease, and this is an important notice. They just put down serious money. I don't want to cite the figure because I can't remember it exactly right now, but serious money for a new building, and it's a long lease. And that, if anything, is proof that Denton wants to grow. He wants Gawker to grow, and you can grow, but you're going to have to let go of the kind of relentless or maybe devil-may-care bomb throwing to the level that they've been doing. If you want to stay small and do that, you can. But if you want to have Coke or comparative, places advertising with you, you're going to have to let a little bit of that go. And clearly, with this move of offices alone, it's evidence that he's planning on doing that.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure. I just on the subject of ads, I have to say this ad before I came on really bummed me out. It was about garbage being recycled, but they gave the garbage the voices of little kids, and they were saying don't throw me away. It was very intense, very intense,
very uplifting content.
We
here on the show.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later. Appreciate it. That's
later, guys.
Reporter for International Business Times, Brendan James. You can find him on Twitter at @deep_beige. I want to say one quick thing.
Yeah.
Emma Carmichael is a friend of mine, the editor-in-chief of Jezebel. She was in a horrible car accident a couple months ago. She's recovering. She's doing well, but she tweeted back on the day. She wrote, "I can say with authority that media Twitter is worse than getting hit by a truck." That is solid tweeting.
Oof, man.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back, kiddos. It's me, Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. We've been doing the media theme for a second hour here. We're going to stick with it. It's, I guess, sort of. I guess Jon Stewart qualifies as media in a certain way. There's
almost out the door.
Story here I'm reading from vulture.com, and many of you know Wyatt Cenac. He's sort of, he was the black guy on the show for a while amongst a couple of other of the black guys that they've had. Larry Wilmore is a guy who, we played a clip from his show earlier, who went on to become, his own sort of, not that he wasn't his own character in his own light, but The Daily Show sort of moved him to a different level of prominence. And this story that Wyatt told on Mark Maron's WTF podcast is kind of disconcerting.
Yeah.
Listen, we're all fans of Jon Stewart here at this program. We play his clips on a regular basis. I mean, his impact on the American media landscape is undeniable. But the story that Cenac tells about how he once, as the lone black writer in the room, got yelled at and dressed down by Stewart because he said that he thought a voice that Stewart was using was coming from a racially insensitive place, and it got so bad to the point that he had to leave the office and had a breakdown, a crying breakdown on a baseball field nearby. I mean, this is really heartfelt stuff. Peter, what did you think about the story when you first read it?
It's first of all, I think it's interesting that we've got this sacred cow of Jon Stewart, right?
Yeah.
That's being kept in check a little bit. But this all comes from a voice that Stewart was using when he was making fun of Herman Cain a couple years ago. And Cenac told him that the voice that he used reminded him of Kingfish from Amos and Andy, which we all know who he's the hello there guy.
Right.
Which you can't be a white guy and be mocking a black guy for sounding like that.
Right.
Full stop.
Yeah. It's racist.
Can't do it. That's racist. But what's more disconcerting than the actual voice or the caricature that Stewart did is when he had a black coworker come to him and try and check him on it and say, I know that you're not trying to be racist, but what you're doing is a little insensitive and you should just
chill.
Keep that in mind. Right. You can't be going around doing blackety black voices.
Right.
That Stewart screamed at him, told him to F off, berated him in front of the whole crew, and drove this guy to a point where he was shaking.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling. Anybody who's been yelled at by a boss at some point knows that feeling. It's a bad feeling, but especially in this business of show that they're in and a pressure cooker that they're in, it really bothers me that a guy like Jon Stewart, who's made a career out of keeping people in check, can't keep himself in check.
Right.
That is a problem.
And
it's a real problem.
As someone who's been, the only black writer or editor in the room for many discussions that don't necessarily involve, whether or not people are going to lose their lives, but editorial decisions, headlines, portrayals in pictures, story choices, things like that. There's a lot of pressure there. It's not easy when you feel like you're representing sort of everyone. Yeah. And when you finally do step up and say something, you feel like you've got to sort of doubly prove whether or not this is important. And I feel for Wyatt in this situation, man, because he probably thought long and hard about whether or not it was worth it to say. Absolutely not. Whether or not it was worth it to say something. And then once he did, he ends up getting his doors blown off. I mean, I'm not going to say I've lost any respect for Jon Stewart because, there's a gotta hear both sides sort of factor, but It's very disappointing as a fan of his work and of that show.
At a base level, right, you have to make sure that the environment that you've created and the environment that you work in is an environment in which people of color and women and any other minority feels comfortable bringing up their issues with you, right? So if Stewart made a point to obliterate Wyatt Cenac when he brought up something that was maybe sensitive to Jon Stewart,
that's a hostile work environment.
That's a hostile work environment.
That's exactly what it is. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. Well, when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about El Presidente.
Yeah.
See what he's been up to. See what my more favorite person in the White House has been up to as well, Pelotus. Anyway, I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. We'll be back. It's the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the program. Let's get this done real quickly here. Let's see what the president is doing. Oh, that's right. He's going to Kenya.
Yeah.
That some people call a hotbed of terror. Actually, it's not. Kenya's a pretty basic place.
Yeah.
Hotbed of terror, this country right here.
Boom.
Just take a look at everything else. You know what else happened at the White House yesterday? Flotus had some people over as part of her Beating the Odds Summit. That's in her Reach Higher initiative. Urban students, rural teens, valedictorians, even some struggling with homelessness showed up as part of her way to try to get kids to make education cool again. One rapper, Wale, was there. He went to Virginia State, Bowie State, and Robert Morris. He's from D.C. He kicks the lyrics, you know, but he said basically it's where he learned how to love music. It wasn't really about a degree because he dropped out where he played football. So, you know, that's part of it. College teaches you something you might not know about yourself. It's a good reason as any to do something. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the The Bill Press Show. We'll be back with, guess what? Travis versus Travis.
This is The Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, kiddos, it's me, Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. We're in the final hour here of the show on Friday, July 24th. We switched things up because it's time to play America's favorite game show.
This is Travis versus Travis. Now, here's your host, Clinton Yates.
In studio with me is, of course, Mr. Travis Waldron, a sports reporter for Huffington Post. You can find him on Twitter at Travis_Waldron. Hello, Travis.
Hello.
And to my left is, of course, Travis Hughes, who's the NHL editor for SB Nation. You can find him at Travis SBN on Twitter. Hello, Travis.
Hello.
All right. This is the third time we played this?
Fourth, I think.
Fourth.
Yeah, fourth. We're getting regular.
Yeah. So you've never won, though?
No, I won the first time.
You won the first time, and it's 2-1.
2-1.
Right?
It is
2-1. Okay.
Yeah.
So this
what kind
is
of host are you?
Dude, listen. All right. My bad. I got a lot going on here.
I think Bob Barker forgets when people win their games.
Yes. In fact, I bet
Bring me Wink Martindale.
I bet you he does. So here's how this works. We're taking the Slate News quiz this morning. The two Travises will face off. They get 1 point for a right answer. But if one of them gets it wrong, you can steal for 2 points. But if you get that wrong, you lose 2 points. So there's an incentive to the steal, but if you botch it, you're screwed. All right, so because Mr. Hughes got here first, he's going first.
Oh, I like this. I like this wrinkle.
That's how that works, Travis.
Beat you by like 3 whole minutes, too.
Let's get things started. All right.
Coffee.
In the light of last week's events in Chattanooga, governors in at least 7 states have ordered their National Guards to protect what? A, churches and synagogues. B, forest service land. C, military recruiting centers. Or D, train depots.
Military recruiting centers.
This is correct. Relatives of Mohammed Abdulaziz said the Kuwaiti-born man who killed 5 service members in a shooting on July 16th had long struggled with depression and drug abuse. That was a very sad story. So we have 1 point for Mr. Hughes. Number 2. This is for you. Kentucky native and Louisville former baseball player Travis Waldron. Physicist Stephen Hawking has announced a decade-long $100 million initiative to find what? A, dark matter, B, intelligent alien life, C, a cure for ALS, or D, Malaysia Airlines Flight 337. These real jokesters here with these.
C, ALS.
No! Ooh, missed that one. That is incorrect.
What was A and B?
A was dark matter, B, intelligent alien life, C, a cure for ALS, D, the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
I'm not going to steal.
That could come back to haunt you.
Bold move.
Old Chalk Talks have revealed that if you have a challenge, sometimes it might be worth using it. The answer is, of course, B. Quote, it's difficult to overstate how big this is, says one of the founders of the new alien hunting program, dubbed Breakthrough Initiatives. It's a revolution.
Alien hunting, that sounds... Yeah, that doesn't sound like the way you might want to frame it.
Yeah.
I've seen too many movies.
Right. They hunt us.
Don't let them We're not hunting you.
Last time
We're
I
just
checked.
looking for new friends.
Exactly. All right. Question number 2 for Mr. Hughes. Which of these dastardly crimes was the initial offense in the chain of events that led to the death of Sandra Bland in Waller County, Texas earlier this month? A, entering a city park after dusk. B, failure to signal a lane change. C, parking in an unloading zone, or D, arguing with a storekeeper?
Failure to the lane change one.
That is correct. Of course, Bland died in custody 3 days after the traffic stop in what the coroner ruled a suicide. Her family has ordered an independent autopsy. We were talking about that earlier this morning on the program. Again, another very sad case. Mr. Waldron, you are down 2-0 right now, which means you are in challenge necessary mode. So think about that for the next question. But for now, here we go. On Monday, hackers threatened to make what private information public if their demands weren't met? A, Ashley Madison's users' identities. B, locations of U.S. terror detention camps. C, Nokia's stolen source code. Or D, Lindsey Graham's cell phone number.
Ashley Madison's user.
Got him! That is correct. Ashley Madison, of course, is a website that is known for infidelity and philanderers. That was just my own personal knowledge I was adding there. The data breach means that the personal and financial information of up to 37 million users of the infidelity website may be in the blackmailer's hands. So you got that right.
Travis is only down by 1 now.
Only down by 1, 2-1. I know that because that website has an incredible tagline. Peter, are you familiar with it?
Yeah, and I forgot what it was.
You're lying, but it's life is short.
Yeah, have an affair. That's it. Life is short.
All right, question number 5 for Mr. Hughes. What was remarkable about the winner of the World Championship of French Scrabble held this week in Belgium? A, the winner was 7 years old. B, the winner was a computer. C, the winner was deported to Algeria before the awards ceremony. Or D, the winner spoke no French.
The deportation one's funny, so let's go with that one.
Bruh. Oh.
Chilling.
Chilling? Okay, the answer is
can't go to -1.
The answer is, in fact, D. The winner spoke no French. Nigel Richards, a native of New Zealand, didn't speak a word of French, but memorized the entire Francophone Scrabble dictionary in just 2 months. That
story is
so he just knows every
insane.
word but doesn't speak the language.
That story is insane.
Actually, genuinely incredible. All right, Mr. Waldron, this would be your third question. In a new study from the medical school at Northwestern University, researchers were able to correctly diagnose people with depression 87% of the time using what methods? A, asking their Facebook friends. B, asking their baristas. C, asking their pets. Or D, asking their cell phones.
D, their cell phones.
Big win right there. That's a crucial point.
Big
Patterns
answer, yeah.
of mobile phone usage actually predicted symptoms of depression more accurately than asking people how sad they felt. That's actually kind of frightening on many levels.
It is terrifying.
A lot of levels,
refuse
yeah.
to be honest. All right, Mr. Hughes. What broadcast, which would have been an American TV first, was preempted Tuesday night because of legality concerns? A, a Confederate flag auction. B, a marijuana ad. C, a televised execution. Or D, a nude soccer match.
I'm going to go with B.
Yeah. This is correct. A Colorado ABC affiliate planned on airing the ad, but then its parent company put the commercial on hold indefinitely while it investigated federal implications. Huh. I don't understand. I mean, what?
If it's in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's not like it's
Station, right? It's legal.
nationally. Yeah, that's weird. Anyway, okay. All right. Mr. Waldron, you are down 1. It is 3-2. According to an international report last year, what happened to people at a rate of once every 2 seconds? A, they were displaced by a natural disaster. B, they were infected with AIDS. C, their human rights were abused. Or D, they became candidates for the Republican presidential nomination.
The human rights abused.
No.
Well,
Ooh.
see you later.
Lindsey Graham with a quick no on that.
According to a new international report last year, what happened to people at a rate of once every 2 seconds? They were displaced by a natural disaster. B, they were infected with AIDS. C, their human rights were abused. D, they became candidates for the Republican presidential nomination.
As much as I want to say D, I'm going to skip.
Oh, yeah. All right. The answer is A. According to the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, 26.4 million people are displaced every year, a 60% increase over the rate 40 years ago.
These questions are depressing.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't write them. You could have put that one away, too, by the way. Right?
I could have.
All right. Question for you, Mr. Hughes. On Monday, a flag-raising ceremony officially restored full diplomatic relations between which two rivals? A, the United Nations and Iran. B, China and Taiwan. C, the United States and Cuba. Or D, Nicki Minaj and Taylor Swift.
Flag raising for Nicki Minaj and Taylor Swift.
That would have been awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it's the U.S. and Cuba.
Got it! This is correct. Mr. Hughes is pulling away here. The Cuban embassy in Washington is open for the first time since 1961. John Kerry is going to raise the flag over the U.S. embassy in Havana on the 14th of August. You're in desperation mode.
The answer's right there behind you.
He is referring to what we have here in studio. So if you're watching on Talker TV, you can check that out yourself. All right, we're getting down here to the home stretch. Mr. Waldron, during a speech in Iowa on Saturday, Donald Trump was booed for saying he liked people who weren't what? A, cheaters. B, crippled. C, captured. Or D, Mexican.
I mean, is there not an all of the above on this?
Exactly.
Because
you don't know this.
It's captured.
Peter? That is correct. All right. Trump was criticizing what he considers an embarrassing mistake made by Senator John McCain, being repeatedly tortured in a North Vietnamese prison for more than 5 years. That take is whack. All right. Mr. Hughes, here we go.
Question. 2 more here?
This is your last question.
Okay.
A $10 million miniature city inhabited only by robots has been built in Ann Arbor, Michigan for what purpose? A, to test self-driving cars. B, to quarantine victims of future epidemics. C, to lure deer away from busy suburbs. Or D, to imprison disgraced Gawker editors in exile.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say find new Michigan football fans. But,
wow.
Oh, man. Could you repeat A and B? Just A and B.
A, to test self-driving cars. B, to quarantine victims of future epidemics.
It's 50-50, right? You're going to get the other one. I don't think it's C or D.
Oh, I know the answer.
Oh, okay. Tough. I'm going to go with quarantine victims of epidemics.
No!
It's self-driving cars.
That is correct. Travis Waldron takes
What a
the lead.
move. What a
and
move.
He has a question coming up.
You won.
No, because you could get it wrong and you could score.
You're right,
so don't
you're right.
forget
So
about
what's the
that.
score? Where are we?
The score is 5-4. Waldron over Hughes.
That was
The
huge.
late breaking move kept his challenge for the smart answer that he knew, outsmarting the competition. Last question. Last weekend, Prime Minister David Cameron said it was time for Britain to have, quote, a big conversation about what possible threat. A, Muslim immigration. B, university closures. C, aging nuclear plants. Or D, seagulls.
It's immigration.
It is not. There's a chance to steal and for the win here. Mr. Hughes.
Oh my God, this is
I
so
will
exciting. I can't believe this.
repeat the options and the question. Last weekend, Prime Minister David Cameron said it was time for Britain to have, quote, a big conversation about what possible threat. A, Muslim immigration. B, university closures. C, aging nuclear plants. Or D, seagulls.
Aging nuclear plants?
No! Yes, buckhands. It was actually D, seagulls.
What?
Pets have been,
Yeah, right?
Pets have been attacked by gulls in Devon and Cornwall this year, leading to a national debate about their protected status.
That's a uniquely
Well,
British
relative to
problem
the
right
rest
there.
of Europe, it seems like they're having a good go of it.
Travis Hughes, you did not win today.
I did not.
You got
not.
here first and didn't win. Of course.
It's all over. Travis wins.
As does win every week. Thank you for playing America's favorite game show. When we come back, we will actually talk about sports and the things that we actually do for our real jobs, not just ask each other dumb questions. Travis versus Travis. Travis wins. In this case, Mr. Waldron. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh,
Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the program. We got all your fan mail. It was just another riveting edition of America's favorite game show, Travis versus Travis. Of course, Travis won as he does every week. It's up to you to listen to figure out which one did. Oh, great. Now we're going to talk about real sports. Travis Hughes, who's the NHL editor for SB Nation, is here. Travis Waldron, who's a sports reporter for the Huffington Post, is here. Mr. Hughes, we'll start with you. I saw a story about the NHL expansion that sort of blew my mind. It said that there's the possibility that, with all the other sort of things happening between Quebec City, potentially Seattle, potentially Portland, that there's also the possibility that Toronto might just get a second team that would simply play in the West in the same place that the Maple Leafs play. Take me through the initial part of what happened earlier last week and then what possibly we have going down the line.
Yeah, so on the Toronto thing, Toronto makes the most financial sense. It can, if there's anywhere in the world that can support two hockey teams, it's Toronto.
Okay.
And yeah, there's been this big debate about whether they build an arena in the suburbs and just have a team there, or they build one in Hamilton, Ontario, which is down in southern Ontario. Or they could just put a team in the Air Canada Centre and just do a Lakers-Clippers situation.
Right.
So that's a possibility at some point. It hasn't been really officially proposed or anything, but that is a possibility. It would make a lot of sense. But this week, the NHL started accepting applications for expansion franchises, and only 2 groups put in applications. There was a lot of talk about, maybe Seattle would put in an application. They have several ownership groups interested. Maybe Portland, maybe Kansas City, maybe Houston, maybe Milwaukee. But only Quebec City, and there's a big media company up there in Canada that's French language that they built a brand new arena, and they're trying to bring the Nordiques back. And then this guy Bill Foley in Las Vegas, who
Vegas baby,
MGM is building a brand new arena right behind New York. And they have 13,000 season ticket deposits already without a team, which is very, very impressive, especially when you consider the arena is only 17,000 seats large.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to get a team. They probably have a better bet than anybody at this point to get a team.
They should just move the one that's already in the desert that's not working to Las Vegas.
Arizona.
You would think. But the NHL is definitely going to expand to 32 teams, in my opinion, because they think that they can get a $500 million expansion fee for each team.
Wow. Okay. So likelihood of team in Vegas versus likelihood of team in Quebec City.
I think Vegas has the best shot, but I think they're both going to wind up with teams one way or the other, whether they both get expansion teams or whether maybe another team relocates to Quebec City. I think ultimately in the next 5 years, Seattle, Quebec City, and Vegas all wind up with teams.
Huh. Okay. All right.
And then maybe Toronto with another team. You never know.
That's insane. I mean, they'd be playing in the same arena and be in 2 different conferences. That would suck to be in the Western Conference and have to play in Toronto. Anyway, Mr. Waldron. Of course, the U.S. men's national team played a couple days ago, lost to the Reggae Boys.
Allegedly.
Right. Yeah, right. What are your thoughts on Jurgen Klinsmann, and does he need to get fired?
I've read a lot about this.
Yeah.
The last few days. I am what a lot of American fans would call a Jurgen Klinsmann homer.
Okay.
I think there's room to criticize Jurgen Klinsmann. I don't think we're at the point where we need to fire him.
All right.
Because I think a lot of times we get caught up with he's both the technical director. He's in charge of reshaping the U.S. national team as well as winning matches. I don't think you can make an argument that the talent pool is better from top to bottom than it was before he came.
Better as a coach than a technical director?
No, I think he's better as a technical director than he is as a manager.
You're saying you can't make the argument meaning it's definitive.
But I think, I think the question gets, I think, it's not going to happen. So it doesn't matter. We can talk hypotheticals all the time, but he's not going to get fired, at least not before we go into the playoff for the Confederations Cup spot later this year.
Explain to people what that is.
So the U.S., because they lost in the Gold Cup, had they won this one, they would have won 2 in a row under new rules that would have gotten them into the Confederations Cup, which is the tune-up for the next World Cup.
Right.
Which is huge. That would have given us some big matches against world powers, and we need to get there.
All right.
But
we'll see. So we got quickly Does he get fired if they do not get to the Confederations Cup?
I don't think so, no.
All right. Well, I say if they don't get there, probably should. Travis, thank you. Travis, thank you. Travis Hughes, Travis Waldron, Clinton Yates, Bill Press, America, F yeah.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
the most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. It's Friday. It's a glorious hot summer day in America. So we got to talk about a guy that everybody in America knows. His name is Bill Cosby. His face is all over the place. And in the last couple weeks, details of a deposition that he did in Philadelphia around 10 years ago have become public, and they are flatly grotesque. He spins a tale talking about what he considers to be love, how he interacts with women, how he basically tried to break down this woman who was a graduate assistant at Temple University. And listen, if you have any doubts that America's TV dad was in fact a monster in real life, then I just don't know what you're paying attention to right now. I mean, you've read the details of this, Peter. They are really, really kind of gross. And beyond that, though, there are some questions. Right here locally in D.C., Ben's Chili Bowl still has his face up on the wall plenty of places. It's an old D.C. eatery that's a rather famous tourist location now. I wrote a column a while back saying that it's probably time for them to get rid of that because, frankly, they don't need him and they're better than that. But also at the Smithsonian, there's a whole art collection with his name on it that's up right now, him and Camille. And it's a tough situation because you got to think, look, even when they put this up, it's obvious that people knew about the accusations. But, you know, the way the Smithsonian sort of gets things through is a little harder than most. You know what I mean? They're federally funded, so that the way things are tied together, they can't just rip something off a wall and say, we don't like it. You know, there's a lot of different committees and things that things go through. But at the same time, people are leaving a lot of messages at that exhibit saying, hey, how about it's time to at least get his name out of here? Leave the art. Get the name gone. What do you think?
This latest deposition is huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Because before this, there were still some Cosby supporters and some people who said, oh, we don't know what happened. And the way that this got out is, it's obviously a terrible and ugly story, but the way that this deposition got out is beautiful. Because the judge said, hey, look, you're going to run around and you're going to preach to people about how to live their lives? Well, I don't think that's fair that you can hide this stuff from your past and continue to go out and preach and talk to people.
Right. Public moralist.
And tell them how to live their lives. You can't do that while you have this. So here are the details.
Yep.
And when we got the details, they're ugly. They are really, really ugly. I mean, it was not just some moments where Bill Cosby acted inappropriately. I mean, this was a predator. There's no other way to describe it. A predator on women. When he talked about how he went out to go and get these drugs and use them to loosen them up. And when you look at things in that context, and you look at not only his time that he spent defending himself over the past several months since this all started, but you look at the way in which he and his defense team tore these women apart and called them gold diggers, called them attention seekers, and just dragged them through the mud the whole time, knowing what he has admitted to is sick. It's a totally different, to me, I think that's a totally different game than what we knew ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
So you can't defend Cosby anymore.
No.
Number one. And number two, yeah, we can't be having these things that celebrate Bill Cosby in the museum or on our murals. You can't. The guy's a rapist.
I agree.
A predator and a rapist.
I agree.
End of story.
Let's go to that audio about some of the details that came from the deposition.
What we're seeing so far are headlines that are grabbing one excerpt or two and then misinterpreting them. When the deposition said that there was use of Quaaludes, which was done often in the 70s, it was considered a party drug called disco biscuits, and it was something that was used frequently, not just by Mr. Cosby, but other entertainers.
First of all,
no
disco biscuits.
Right?
What the hell is that? I have never heard that term before in my life. That sounds creepy off top. Second, that's not a defense. The everybody was doing it bit is listen, it makes sense in the context of, let's say, I don't know, we all jumped into the pool after hours. Sure, everybody was doing it, okay? You got in trouble with your parents. That doesn't work in the context of pursuing, raping, denigrating, and then trying to financially pay off women. It doesn't work that way. To me, I think you're right, Peter. I think that it was impossible for me to believe that I would somehow come out of this feeling worse than I already did about Cosby. And I was a huge cynic from the jump. I believed every single woman from the beginning. And once the details came out, I somehow am more sickened by knowing that, thinking that look, when you engage in such an act of predatory behavior and then till the end keep that morality, respectability politics component in it by saying things like, we'll pick up the tab for you to go to school, but only if you maintain a 3.0 GPA? How sadistic and sick and sociopathic do you have to be to think that it's reasonable for you to chase someone, abuse them, and then put conditions on,
dangle it over them,
your willingness to pay them for something? It's almost as if there's some component of, I don't want to say torture here, but he enjoyed that manipulative component, apparently, as much as he enjoyed whatever physical pleasure he may or may not have gotten. And that is where it gets to a level of, you have issues that are not even close to being able to be sort of written off as a sign of the times or the way people did things. Nah, man, this dude was scary. He was sick.
You know, one of the things that we hear a lot of times when we talk about sexual assault and rape is it's not about the sex. It's about the power.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the power trip, and it's about the control. And it's a really hard notion for especially guys, but for a lot of people to grasp if you haven't really seen it, right?
Been in control like that, yeah.
This is the best example of what people mean when they say that it's about the power and it's about the control. Like, for all the reasons that you just mentioned. Right?
No, it's true.
The sadistic, weird kink that he had for holding that power over people. That is what he seemed to be addicted to.
Right. Exactly. Being in control of people's lives. One of the details that came out, this is from a Post story that I read from that deposition, which, by the way, the details of which were acquired through, a court reporting service that newspapers just bought it from. It's amazing how sometimes when you just look right in front of you, you'll find what you're looking for. Excuse me. He said that he requested models to dine with him in his dressing room at the tapings of The Cosby Show, and he had a very specific preference. He preferred that they be lower to financially problematic. He preferred that they be in a not great place in their career. I mean, he very specifically groomed and courted a certain type of a person who would not be able to fight back. And when you think about the people in this society, the people on this earth who need people in their corners, who need advocates for them, who need protection from predators and violent people, you start to put into a little bit more perspective for those of us who are not cisgendered, straight, typically white males, what the struggle is really like. You know what I mean? You can't trust anybody because even the guy who's telling you in anti-drug PSA ads not to take pills and to eat your Jell-O and all this other crap, even that guy is one of the sickest monsters on earth. And it only works because young women just aren't in a position to really fight back. And that is one of the most disheartening things to me about the entire story is that, frankly, a lot of people not named Bill Cosby probably do this on the regular and could do it on the regular.
Oh, yeah.
It happens to be extra salacious because we know who Bill Cosby is. But I guarantee you that there are a million dudes running Fortune 500 companies all over the globe who have a similar setup in their lives because like the Cos, they're addicted to the power as much as they are to the sex.
Believe that. That's true.
It's scary.
That's true.
All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about some things that made me a little happier than that, but that needed to be said. Can't trust that guy anymore. Can't have that guy in public places in our society, if you ask me. And I'm Clinton Yates. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay U hosts and North Hum for coverage of lesbian, bisexual news. Watch Gay USA every week only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense, a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
On your radio, TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's me, Clates. All right, Washington Post, filling in for Bill here. We're down to the end of the week, which means it's time to talk about movies. We're going to talk about an oldie. We're going to talk about a recent movie.
Nice.
We're going to start with the old, and then we're going to go with the new. 20 years ago, a movie was released. One word movie name. It's called Kids. Came out in the summer or around sort of remember what that film was about. It was a movie that spanned the life of New York City teenagers over the course of one single day, 24 hours. And in the movie, there's a lot of things that go on. Sex, drugs, skateboarding, fights in the streets, jumping in the pools, as we mentioned. And at the time, it was considered a very controversial film. A lot of the kids who were in it were non-actors. They were sort of first-time, people. There's a lot of people that grew up to be semi-famous in that film. Chloe Sevigny is one, but at the time that movie was looked at as sort of a very non-realistic film when it came to life. And I remember when I went to college, one of the things that in some setting I was in, we were asked was, what was the movie that most reminded you of your high school life? And I would say Kids. And people would be like, you're joking. And I'd be like, no. When you grew up in a city on the East Coast, summertime was a lot of time spent doing everything wrong, so to speak, and that's what life was like. You try to sneak into some club and there's people in there, doing all sorts of things. And I just, looking back on that film, there's no way a movie like that gets made now. It was sort of a quasi-documentary. It looked very raw. There were a lot of naked scenes with very young children in them, which, looking back on now, I see in a lot more cringeworthy of a time. But when it came out, I was 14. I was 15. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like anything that I wasn't seeing with my own eyes amongst my peers then. I don't know what you thought of that movie at the time or now, but I can tell you that is one of the most relatable films I've ever seen in my life, particularly one that's not sort of specifically designed toward the black experience.
Raw is the best way to describe that movie. It is a very, very raw movie. I remember seeing it when it first came out, and I didn't have the experience that you had. I mean, I grew up in South Carolina and not in a very metropolitan area, so it was sort of eye-opening to me. Because, being a person that age, and essentially the age of the kids that were in the movie, they were doing all the stuff that I wanted to do. Yeah. And so it's it's funny because I remember the controversy around it when it came out, and there was this huge outcry about, the glorification of the things that are in the movie. And I was just kind of like, no, I mean, I think that's pretty normal. I think it's normal. I think it's what kids that age are into and want to do. Yeah. It totally made me want to do it.
One of the cruxes of the movie is centered around, the AIDS epidemic. And in the mid-90s, particularly in D.C., never mind in New York, it was real, but it was also one of those things with kind of a hidden face. 95, you still sort of presume that you had to be on drugs or gay or otherwise, I don't even know what, to find yourself running into that disease. But in the film, what happens is two friends go to get tested, and the girl who's only been with someone once ends up having AIDS. Yeah. And you see through this sort of small social circle how misinformation and non-communication and unsafe sex immediately starts to ruin lives. And when you're a teenager and you see that, it's a little bit more pressing than just an ad on a television or in a bus bay that says, don't do this, you could die. When it's connected to characters and the lives of people that sort of look like you and you can understand, it's got a totally different meaning. And I remember walking away from that film thinking, wow, this is one of the most educational pieces of cinema I've ever seen, whereas other people were just concerned about the fact that there were kids smoking weed in it and, skateboarding, whatever, around town. So that's one movie. The second movie is a little movie called The Battered Bastards of Baseball. Now, I was out in Portland, Oregon last weekend. Jamie knows this, ran into him out there. Did you see my Hillsboro Hops hat right here? Minor League Baseball.
That's a hat.
It's a hat and a half.
I like that hat.
Now, if you don't know this, Kurt Russell of Kurt Russell fame, Hollywood actor. His dad was a Hollywood actor. Bing Russell. Bing Russell played the deputy on Gunsmoke for like 15 years. Bing Russell also happened to be obsessed with baseball. And in 1972, Bing Russell decided he wanted to start a minor league baseball team, an independent baseball team in Portland, Oregon. The Beavers had been gone. AAA baseball wasn't working. But by that moment in America, every single team in the minor leagues was affiliated with the major league squad, except for one, the Portland Mavericks. Portland Mavericks never won a title because big league teams didn't want an independent team to be beating them in the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
So it was a band of misfits. This guy held open tryouts. He had a left-handed catcher. He brought some guy that had been blackballed from baseball on to be his main pitcher. He was recruiting people out of the stands. It was this whole sort of second chance thing. It is an extremely emotional movie, and it is the best baseball movie I've ever seen in my life.
No kidding.
Listen, I am a huge baseball fan. I do not say that lightly. It's the best baseball movie I've ever seen in my life, and I cried probably through the last hour of the film.
No kidding.
Because the stories are so unbelievable that if they weren't true, you wouldn't believe it. All of the ancillary characters around it, they got shut down and bought out by Major League Baseball 5 years after they started. They never won a Northwest League title. However, they were the most popular team in Portland for years.
Wow.
That is a movie you have to see.
Wow.
If you like baseball, if you like movies, if you like stories, you got to see it. And Bing Russell is at the heart of it. He's Kurt Russell's dad. Kurt Russell, by the way, who was the DH and the vice president of the team. Sidebar. All right, when we get back, we're going to wrap things up. That was Movie Time with Uncle Clinton.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, wrapping things up here on the programs. Time to get out of here. Who do we have on the show today, Peter? Let us review. We had National Communications Director for the Working Families Party and contributor to the Nation, Joe Dinkin. Talked about Black Lives Matter and Bernie Sanders with him. Of course, Hadas Gold, who's a media reporter for Politico, came on. We discussed Trump and the Gawker situation. Media reporter for International Business Times, Brendan James, and the Twitter handle of the day, @deep_beige. He came on and we discussed Gawker as well at length. And of course, you asked for it, you got it. Travis versus Travis. Huffington Post, Travis Waldron. You can find him on Twitter at Travis_Waldron. And of course, Travis Hughes, who's the NHL editor for SB Nation at Travis SBN. He was on, and guess what? Travis won. So that's who was here. How's your weekend? What do you got going on?
Good. I'm taking my kids to their first ever big kid concert. We're going to see My Morning Jacket.
that's fun.
Rager of a lot.
Cool.
Taking the kids, and Jason Isbell is opening up, a wonderful songwriter.
Nice.
Out of Merriweather Post.
Merriweather, okay.
Yeah, my favorite place to see live music.
That's cool.
Area.
That's cool,
So we're
yeah.
gonna go out there.
I'm thinking I might go to the movies this weekend. Might go see Trainwreck. Amy Schumer, she's funny.
I think I'm going to do that too.
It's
that
good.
looks
I
saw it, yeah.
I saw it. It's a good. Kids have been out of town, so I've
Right.
seen like everything. Trainwreck is good.
All right. Well, for Monty, for Jamie, for Elisa, and for Peter, I'm Clinton. Thanks again, Bill, for letting me sit in your seat. It's always fun. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, for listening to me talk that talk. Have a good weekend. Safety first, kiddos.
This is the Bill Press Show.